My name is Rachel Turner. I'm 35, and 3 months ago, my husband told me I looked tired, said our son needed more structure, said bringing in a caregiver would help. At the time, it sounded reasonable, responsible, even. But within days, that woman was doing things that didn't make sense. She knew exactly which lights bothered my son before he reacted. She knew how to stop a meltdown before it started. She knew how to calm him in ways I had learned slowly, over years. And then one night, she said something that made everything stop. She called him by a name no one else knew. Not my husband, not our family, just me. And in that moment, standing in my own kitchen, I realized something I couldn't explain away. She hadn't learned my son, she had been taught. And the person who taught her was the man I trusted most. The first thing that felt wrong wasn't what she said. It was the way the house sounded when she stepped inside, like something had shifted slightly out of place, a rhythm I couldn't quite name but immediately felt. And I remember standing in the hallway watching her before she even noticed me. The soft scrape of her shoes against the floor, the quiet confidence in how she moved toward the kitchen without asking where anything was, like she had already mapped the space in her head. And Daniel stood beside her explaining Ethan's routine in that calm, controlled tone he used when he wanted something to sound reasonable, something already decided. And when he introduced her as Claire, a behavioral support caregiver he found through an agency, he didn't look at me, not once, like my reaction wasn't part of the equation anymore. And I smiled because that's what you do when you're trying not to feel replaced in your own home, when you've already been told gently, repeatedly, that you're tired, overwhelmed, maybe not handling things the way you should be. And Claire smiled back, soft, practiced, the kind of smile that settles in too quickly. And then she turned toward Ethan like I was already background noise. Ethan didn't like new people. Even voices could throw him off. But Claire didn't hesitate. She crouched slowly, just enough distance, not touching him, and said his name in a low, steady tone. And I felt it immediately, the precision of it, like she wasn't guessing, like she already knew exactly where his threshold was. And then she reached into her bag and pulled out noise-canceling headphones, the same brand we used, same color, and handed them to him just seconds before the garbage truck outside hit the curb, the metal clang echoing down the street, and Ethan didn't flinch the way he usually did, didn't panic. He just took them, calm, immediate, and something cold moved through me, because that wasn't timing, that was anticipation. I told myself Daniel must have explained everything, that maybe I was reading too much into it. But then Claire walked into the kitchen, opened the third drawer without looking, and pulled out the exact plastic knife we used only for Ethan's food. And I watched her hands as she cut his sandwich into perfect squares, crusts removed, edges even, no hesitation, no checking, just certainty. And I asked her, lightly, casually, how she knew he liked it that way. And she paused, just for a fraction of a second, barely noticeable, before saying, consistency helps. And it wasn't the answer that bothered me. It was that tiny pause, like she had almost reached for something she wasn't supposed to say. And Daniel didn't fill the silence, didn't explain, just stood there, watching in that quiet way I hadn't understood yet. The rest of the day unfolded in small moments that didn't feel like proof on their own, but built something heavier together. Claire dimming lights before Ethan reacted, choosing the exact cup he preferred without opening more than one cabinet, redirecting him mid-meltdown with timing that felt practiced instead of learned. And every time she got it right, Daniel would glance at me, not warmly, not reassuringly, but like he was measuring something, comparing something. And by evening, I felt it fully, that subtle shift, like I wasn't the center of my son's world anymore, just someone orbiting it. But the moment that stayed, the one that didn't let me sleep, came just before bedtime, when Ethan started pacing along the rug, his breathing uneven, that early stage before things escalate. And I moved toward him automatically, already knowing what to say. But Claire stepped in first, kneeling beside him, not touching, just close enough, and in a soft voice said, "Hey, Bug, it's okay." And everything inside me went still, because that name wasn't shared, it wasn't used, it wasn't written anywhere. It was mine, something I whispered to him in quiet moments no one else was part of. And I looked at Daniel immediately, waiting for confusion, for a reaction, for anything that told me this was strange. But he didn't react, not even slightly. And in that silence, something shifted into place in a way I couldn't undo, because that wasn't coincidence, that was access. If you want to see what happened next, stay with me. And if you like stories that reveal what people try to hide, don't forget to like and subscribe. The first real proof didn't come from something obvious. It came from something incomplete, something left open just long enough for me to see it before it disappeared. And it happened early in the morning when the house was still quiet. That kind of silence where every sound feels too loud, and Daniel's laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, screen dim like it had been forgotten mid-thought. And I remember telling myself not to look, actually stepping away before something pulled me back. Just a single subject line glowing faintly at the top of the screen. Updated documentation request, Turner case. And the word case didn't belong in my life, didn't belong in a marriage, and before I could stop myself, I stepped closer. I didn't read it all at once. My eyes caught pieces first, observed inconsistencies, improved regulation, attached clips, and then I clicked, and a folder opened instantly, like it had been waiting. Ethan_care_log. And inside were videos, organized, labeled, dated, and the first one started without sound, just a wide shot of my living room from the corner camera we installed last year, Daniel saying it was for safety. And then the audio kicked in and I saw myself, tired, trying to calm Ethan, my voice thinner than I remembered, my movements slower. And before I could process it, the clip ended, and another began, and another, and I started noticing a pattern, not in what was shown, but in what was missing, because every single clip ended just before things got better, just before Ethan settled, just before I fixed it. It wasn't documentation, it was a selection. I backed out too quickly, my hand slipping slightly, but the email thread stayed open, and now I saw the recipient clearly. A family law attorney, and something inside me dropped into place with a clarity that felt colder than fear, because suddenly all those quiet looks Daniel had been giving me made sense. The way he observed instead of helped, the way he stayed calm while I struggled. And I heard a floorboard upstairs and snapped the laptop halfway shut, my heart loud, my breathing uneven, and for a moment I just stood there, trying to think without letting the full truth hit all at once. But I opened it again, slowly, scrolled further, and then I saw the line that changed everything. We will proceed with formal evaluation next week. Caregiver observations will be included to establish comparative stability. Comparative. That word didn't need explanation. This wasn't help, this was positioning. And Claire, her precision, her timing, her knowledge, wasn't just skill, it was contrast. A controlled version of better. And in that moment, standing there alone in my kitchen, I understood something I hadn't been ready to see before. He wasn't trying to support me, he was building a case against me. If you want to see what happened next, stay with me. And if you like stories that reveal what people try to hide, don't forget to like and subscribe. The moment everything became clear was the moment I stopped reacting, because I understood something Daniel didn't expect, that if I fought him the way he planned, I would lose. But if I stayed quiet, if I watched, if I let him keep building what he thought was perfect, I could see where it would break. And that night, after Ethan fell asleep, I sat in the dark and started recording everything, not selectively like him, but fully. The beginning, the middle, the end, the struggle and the recovery, the real version of what parenting actually looks like, messy and imperfect and human. And I called Ethan's former therapist the next morning, someone who knew him before any of this started, and scheduled an independent evaluation. And then I spoke to a lawyer, not to attack, but to understand. And what I learned confirmed what I already felt. Daniel wasn't guessing, he was constructing a narrative. But narratives have weak points, and Claire was one of them. I started watching more closely, and the cracks were small at first, easy to miss. A half-second hesitation before opening a cabinet, a slight misread of Ethan's cues when things escalated faster than expected, moments where performance slipped just enough to show it wasn't instinct, it was learned. And learned behavior doesn't adapt the same way real understanding does. And I didn't interrupt, didn't expose it. I let it exist because I needed it to show itself when it mattered most. And when the evaluation came, the one Daniel had arranged, the one he believed would confirm everything, it didn't unfold the way he expected. Because when Claire was asked to explain Ethan beyond routine, structure, beyond the surface level, she hesitated, just briefly, but enough. And Ethan, my son who doesn't fake comfort, pulled away from her, gravitated back to me without prompting, without confusion, just instinct. And that moment didn't need explanation. It didn't need argument. It just existed, clear and undeniable. And when everything was reviewed, not just his clips but mine, not just his version but the full picture, the outcome wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, controlled, final in a way that felt heavier than anything else. Because what Daniel had built didn't collapse all at once. It unraveled slowly, piece by piece, until there was nothing to hold on to. And the last time I saw him, he didn't argue, he didn't explain. He just stood there, silent. Because some truths don't need to be spoken out loud once they've been seen clearly enough. And as I held Ethan's hand, feeling the familiar weight of him, steady and real, I understood something I hadn't before. That you can try to reshape someone's story, edit it, reduce it, present it however you want. But the truth doesn't disappear just because someone tries to control how it's seen. It waits until someone decides to show it all. If you want to see what happened next, stay with me. And if you like stories that reveal what people try to hide, don't forget to like and subscribe.